A new century dawns upon America, illuminating new horizons for the Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. 1908, a son, Max, is born in the Fisher family, Eastern European immigrants who settled in Pittsburgh. The first of 4 children, Max grows up in Salem, Ohio, the only Jewish family in the town. He plays football in high school and there is known as the Rabbi. At 18, Max Fisher begins his studies at Ohio State University on a football scholarship. The Great Depression starts with the New York stock market crash in October 1929. 4 years later, Max Fisher moves to Detroit to work with his father in the oil amelioration business. After a short while, he goes his own way and establishes an oil company, Aurora Gasoline. Within a year, the business starts to flourish. He marries Sylvia Krell. The couple has a daughter, Jane. He invests all his time and energy in the business, which grows and develops. Sylvia dies an untimely death. Later on, he marries Marjorie, mother of Mary and Philip. A daughter, Julie, is born. 3 years later, they have another daughter, Margie. Business is thriving. Max becomes interested in Israel. He arrives in Israel for the first time on a UJA study trip and thus begins his love affair with the country, lasting his entire lifetime. Max Fisher and the State of Israel. This is a great love story. In the 1950s, he begins to strengthen the special bond between the Jewish people in the diaspora and the State of Israel. He invests $16 million in the Israeli petrochemical industry. In 1957, Max Fisher becomes the president of the Jewish Welfare Federation of Detroit. He establishes a close relationship with President Dwight David Eisenhower. Following a conversation about the IDF operations in the Sinai, he is told by Eisenhower, "If I had a Jewish advisor by my side, I would not have forced the Israelis to withdraw." Fisher realizes that in order to strengthen the rear guard of the Jewish people, one must be closer to the administration and work towards that goal. In 1963, he makes a significant decision. He sells his business, Aurora Gasoline Company, while remaining active in it and dedicates much of his time and energy to fundraising, charity, and to strengthening the bond between the Jewish people and the State of Israel. 1965. Max Fisher is appointed as chairman of the UJA and manages to raise sums which were never previously raised for the benefit of the State of Israel. When the Six-Day War breaks out, Fisher is chairman of the UJA. Following the victory, he heads an international campaign to support Israel. He conducts an entire orchestra that plays Love for Israel. He continues playing his love song for Israel within the White House. In 1968, with the help of Fisher, Richard Nixon is elected president. Fisher declines a position but achieves the status of an informal advisor and is admitted into the Oval Office whenever he calls. Meanwhile, his roles in the Jewish world, and especially among American Jewry, are increased and broadened, and he serves in practically every key position. As president of the Council of Jewish Federations from 1969 to 1972, he is responsible for putting Jewish education for the diaspora on the North American agenda. The Six-Day War has just ended, and the next battle, the post-war war, has already begun. The War of Attrition. In the Transjordan and the Suez Canal, terrorist organizations start carrying out attacks. Fisher is convinced that life in the shadow of the Holocaust lays a special responsibility on the world's Jewry, the responsibility to safeguard the existence of the State of Israel. He had hoped that Israel would not be dependent on the diaspora's support for its needs, and he wished to establish an organization that will represent the partnership between Israel and the Jews of the diaspora. Thus, he becomes the leading force in the regeneration of the Jewish agency. Thanks to his efforts, the new structure is decided upon. To those opposing change, he says, "The important thing is to create the framework. Once we start working together, people will realize that the goals and the tasks are more important than the structure and the organization. Fisher himself is elected as chairman of the Board of Governors. His friend Louis Pincus is chairman of the executive. Max Fisher's genius at consensus building manifests itself, and because of this, he succeeds in bringing together the WZO and fundraisers, leading to a totally new era of success and accomplishment for the Jewish Agency. He was repeatedly heard stating, "There is no such person as a non-Zionist. We are all Zionists." The struggle for freedom of the silent Jewry, hidden behind the Iron Curtain, makes headlines. There are demonstrations of support around the world. Fisher is the key figure in this activity, bringing about a partial lifting of the curtain and the exodus of Jews from the Soviet Union. In 1973, Fisher is instrumental in persuading the U.S. government, through the State Department, to provide $31 million for the Soviet immigration to Israel. The sum is increased to $80 million in the 1990s. October 6, 1973. At 2:00 p.m. during the fast of the Day of Atonement, the air raid sirens wail throughout Israel. War. Fisher, a confidant of the president, working together with then Ambassador Dinitz, persuades Nixon to order airlift supplies to Israel, and during 1 month, the aircraft carried 22 tons of weapons and ammunition. In the early 1980s, following a request by Prime Minister Begin, Fisher leads a Jewish Agency campaign to revive slum areas and upgrade poor neighborhoods, Project Renewal. The towns of the periphery and the slums are renovated. 36 hours, dozens of airplanes, more than 14,000 immigrants in one weekend. Operation Solomon is successfully concluded. Many Ethiopian Jews are now in Israel. Same time, with the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe, Soviet Jews are packing their bags, and the Jewish Agency brings them home to Israel. Within a few years, the population of Israel is increased dramatically. The efforts of the Jewish Agency bear fruit, and within a short period, almost 1 million new immigrants, Olim, are brought to Israel. There are many waves of immigration to Israel. Countless settlements appear on the ground, roads are paved, and factories are set up. In 5 decades of activity, in dozens of positions, in hundreds of projects, in many operations, all these bear the stamp of Max Fisher's vision and commitment. He becomes a symbol of the unique ties between the Jews of the diaspora and the State of Israel. In the naming ceremony of the UJC offices in New York, named after himself, he is recognized as the ultimate Jewish leader. March 3rd, 2005, Max Fisher passes away at the age of 96. A new day is dawning. New horizons are appearing in the East and in the West. The special bond between the Jewish people and the State of Israel is strengthened and expanded. Max Fisher and the Jewish Agency have opened many doors between the diaspora and Israel. Doors of friendship that will safeguard the future of the people and the State of Israel. And the doors will always be open.